Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am an early childhood special education teacher, a life and ADHD coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I created this podcast to help anyone wondering if they have ADHD, people who have been diagnosed for a while and want some more support and community. I'm here to bring you the latest research on ADHD and neurodiversities while we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ADHD. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, my friend, and welcome back to Authentically ADHD. And if you're new here, welcome to Authentically ADHD, where we dive into all the different things ADHD and how we can live our most authentic and vibrant lives while embracing our neurodivergence. I'm your host, Carmen Irace, and today we're getting into a super important topic. And if I'm going to be honest, I know you're going to cringe here. Self-care. ADHD and self-care. Now, if you're like me, you've heard that term, self-care, thrown around quite a bit. But what does it actually look like for somebody with ADHD? Because we know that everything looks different when we have ADHD. So we're going to talk about what self-care means for us, the challenges that we face when it comes to caring for ourselves, and some practical tips to make it all a little bit more doable and a little less abstract, because our brains work better when we have a concrete, some kind of step we can start with. Are you ready? Let's get started. All right, so first things first, what do we mean when we say self-care? Because it's not just like glamour, like face masks, bubble baths, and candles. I mean, if that's your thing, go for it. Self-care, especially for us, is anything that helps us function better mentally, physically, and emotionally. It's about making sure that our cups are filled so that we can go out into the world and get through the day without feeling completely overwhelmed, and sometimes feeling actually great. So what self-care actually is practices that improve your health, all of it. Your emotional health, your physical health, and your mental health. Self-care can look a lot of different ways. It can look like eating regular meals, which we tend to do because we get hyper-focused on distracted. We tend to miss meals and forget to eat. Our working memory kind of sucks, so we forget things like that. Another thing self-care can look like is prioritizing sleep. Poor sleep and ADHD are like oil and water. It will burn you out faster than you know because lack of sleep makes ADHD symptoms worse. So prioritizing sleep is amazing because poor sleep makes ADHD so much worse. Now, creating a structure is another thing that is self-care. Okay, on my days of self-care, creating a structure, even for the rest of the week or for that day, it may seem like it feels suffocating. You want to know what that means? You're putting too much on there. What I want you to do is create the structure that supports your daily tasks, the things that you need to get done that are a priority. And I've talked about this before. Our brains don't prioritize things in a way that they're supposed to do from top down. They scream at us from the same level. We feel like everything is important. So when you sit down with your executive brain and ask yourself, what is more important? What is due? What is needed from me? And then what's the most important thing that I need? When's the last time I ate? How much sleep did I get last night? Have I been outside today or exercised or drank water? We tend to forget that self-care is not like a luxury or indulgence. It's a necessity. especially for ADHD brains. It's not always just about relaxing, but rather taking intentional actions to help set ourselves up for success. That is something I talk about a lot. I like to use my self-care days. I mean, do I take naps and relax? Yes. But I also take actions to set up my future self for success, to make things easier, to make things run more smoothly. So why do ADHDers struggle with self-care so much? Self-care is often a very big challenge for us. And one reason is because our executive functioning skills that we struggle with, it can make it so hard to plan and prioritize. We're often focused on the urgent things that we need to get done that have deadlines and pressure. Or we tend to focus on the interesting things, so we neglect the routine things that are crucial to maintaining balance. I recently realized I was doing this because I would do all of these self-care tasks before work, and I would get all of that morning routine done. And I would go to work, and by the time I got home, I was so tired, and I was just spending so much time brain rotting on my phone. And I noticed that I was going into burnout way faster than I intended on doing. I had set myself up for the beginning of the school year, and it's, we're edging on October right now. I know for you right now, we're in October. For me, we're right at the end of September right now, and I'm feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated and on the verge of burnout. So small things like brushing my teeth or preparing meals felt monumental. And I decided to give myself grace, and we're going to do a reset here very soon. It's part of the ADHD experience. It's because of procrastination, distractions, and our impulsivity. These all get in the way of self-care. And let's not forget about sometimes taking care of ourselves doesn't feel stimulating enough to hold our attention. Showers are boring. Reading is boring. Doing the dishes is boring. So we got to kind of pair it with things that are enjoyable for us. Okay? So we have to acknowledge these challenges. Okay? Like first, that's what we have to do. It's hard, and that's okay. Stop beating yourself up, and let's find strategies that work for you. So now for the good stuff, the practical tips that I'm going to share. Some self-care strategies that have made a real difference for me and others in the ADHD community. So these tips are designed to work with your brain and not against them, but if you don't think that they would work for you at all, throw it in the trash. Don't do it. The first one is time blocking with flexibility. Time blocking is a lifesaver, but it's important to keep it flexible. So instead of scheduling every minute of your day, create time blocks for different activities like morning routines, work, and relaxation. It's key to leave some buffer room between those blocks so that if you get off track, it's not a huge disaster. Also, make it so that you're able, if you can, to move those things around. So sorry about that. Technical malfunction with my treadmill that started playing music. Okay, this wouldn't be an ADHD podcast if I cut this out because it just distracted me, right? I'm very interested in doing this podcast, so I had to re-regulate and make sure that I am regulated enough to find, because I was overwhelmed a little bit there. It kind of freaked me out, and yeah. So let's get back to the practical tips, shall we? So make sure you can move, if you can, move those times around, right? For example, I block out time in the morning for a walk and time to eat, time to journal, and like a shower and all those things. I put those things on my calendar, and I give myself little 5 to 10 minute blocks in between, just so that if I get caught up journaling for a couple extra minutes, it's not a big deal. I heard the timer go off, and I do know I need to stop soon. And so that's why I'm not stressed about being off schedule all day, Because a lot of times what we do is we tend to schedule the entire day and then beat ourselves up when we are, quote unquote, running behind. The next one that I find really, really useful is body doubling. Sometimes we need a level of accountability to get things done. This is where body doubling comes in, and there are levels of it. I have found that low-level body doubling, like, this can be a recorded body double that somebody put up on YouTube, like Haley Honeyman, or this can be something like a podcast or a TV show. But if that's for tasks, I believe, that are smaller tasks, I can use body doubling recorded on YouTube or being streamed without being in an actual virtual room with people to get important things done. But that's because I have done body doubling where I do tasks alongside someone else, whether we're in person or it's virtual. Even, it doesn't matter what the other person is doing. It's just the presence of the focus that you are both doing work. So also, like I said, if you're struggling with tasks like doing laundry, cleaning, or even self-care routines, you can try having a family member or friend that can maybe jump on a virtual session or jump on the phone with you that's working on their own stuff. And I'm telling you, you'll be amazed at how motivating it really can be. So here's another part of self-care that we often forget about, and that is rest. Rest, right? I have a whole episode on the 7 types of rest, and really figuring out what supports that you need to build into what type of rest that you're missing really can help you in meeting your basic needs and doing all the rest of the things that you need to do that will help you later, that will set you up for success. This is what self-care is. Self-care is not being lazy, okay? Self-care produces a net positive result. Being lazy produces a net negative result, okay? When you're practicing self-care, you're being kind to future you. So next time you feel like you're being lazy and you're not practicing self-care, find the intention behind it. Is it because you just want to do nothing, or is it because you need to rest? Is it because you're doing nothing and being lazy, or is it because right now you don't have the capacity to do the thing? Okay? On to the next one. Alarms and visual reminders. Our brains need reminders, especially for self-care. And I'm talking about setting reminders for things like drinking water, taking breaks, eating, and moving your body. I use my phone, or if you're old school, you can use sticky notes. Sticky notes do not work for me. I will remind myself of things like on the bathroom mirror or right in the middle of my computer screen with them. But what I do is I make the reminder. You can settings that reminder, right? And you can set that reminder or whatever it is so that when it pops up, it is taking everything. It's overriding everything. So for me, I usually have a headphone in my ear. So if a reminder is going off, it cuts off the podcast or whatever I'm listening to, and I make it make a noise in my ear telling me, hey, you might want to check your phone because there's a reminder on there. Visual cues can be game changers for people like us when you're trying to keep your self-care on radar daily. I promise you, it's changed my life. Taking frequent movement breaks is the next one. ADHD brains thrive on movement. I know that for me, if I'm sitting for too long, my brain fog kicks in and everything feels harder and I get distracted much easier. I have a standing desk and I incorporate movement breaks, whether I'm just like stretching out my body or I'm transitioning by taking a short walk, or even putting on a good song and dancing around for a few minutes to re-energize my brain so I can get back into the task that I'm doing. Setting a timer to remind yourself to get up and move every 30 to 45 minutes. Or if you have a watch that, has that thing on it, that wants you to move, certain amount of steps every hour, it will tell you about 10 minutes to the hour if you have not met that goal. Get up and do those little small bursts of physical activity. They can make a huge difference on your ability to focus and care for yourself. Just a little tidbit, and this is something I say a lot. Physical movement works in the same way that ADHD medication works. It activates the same chemicals in the brain, all right? Stimulants, at least, not the non-stimulants. Simplify and outsource when you can. Listen, self-care does not have to be complicated. If something is a struggle for you, simplify it. If something is hard for you and easier for somebody else, delegate it. Find a few easy go-tos and stick with those. If certain things feel overwhelming and you don't have somebody you can delegate to, but you have the funds, try a delivery service or meal kits to save time and mental energy. Outsource when you can, whenever you can, whether it's getting help with cleaning, automating some kind of daily task, or for me, delegating to my team so that I'm not the only one doing all of the work, because usually, ADHD perfectionism gets in the way, but the goal is to lighten your load so you have more bandwidth to do what's within your capacity and your self-care. Self-compassion is key. Lastly, the most important part of self-care is self-compassion. We can literally be our own worst critics, like the meanest mean girl in your brain, especially when we feel like we're falling behind or not meeting expectations. But remember, none of this is about perfection. It's about taking care of yourself in the best way that you can, even if it looks a little different day to day. So, some real life ways to prevent burnout is just preventing or taking on this essential part of healing and overall well-being as a part of life. Implement some of these strategies into your daily routine, and you'll be able to prioritize your mental and physical health. So another thing that you can do is practice mindfulness. This involves being present, fully present in the moment, and paying close attention to your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. It can help reduce stress, improve focus, and enhance self-awareness. So other things you can do for self-care is setting boundaries, journaling, and making sure that you are aware of yourself, because for ADHDers, again, it's very hard to be self-aware. To wrap up, I just want to share a few examples of how I incorporate self-care, ADHD, like in my ADHD life. So I do a weekly reset on Sundays, and I take about an hour to reset my space. I tidy up, I check my calendar for the week, I plan it out, I plan out some meals and some clothes, and it really helps me to start the week feeling grounded. Even if the week gets chaotic, I feel good at the beginning of the week. I do this other thing where I do get up pretty early so that I can do journaling and movement and stretching and make sure I eat in the morning before I go to school so that I am the best teacher that I can be. I also use my ADA accommodations and my FMLA intermittently to help prevent burnout. And lastly, I've given myself permission to rest when I need it. Sometimes that means saying no to plans or allowing myself to take a nap without feeling guilty. Rest is just as important, and it's just as much of a part of self-care as anything else. So there you have it. Self-care ADHD style. Remember, self-care is a journey. It's not a destination. Some days it will feel kind of easy, and other days it might feel like an uphill battle, and that's okay. The most important part is to keep showing up for yourself in ways that work for you and stop beating yourself up. Just try again tomorrow or try differently. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode. If you found it helpful, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or share it to your socials and tag me so I can give you a huge virtual hug. Until next time, stay authentic and we will talk soon. Speaking of extra supports, I just wanted to tell you all that I've updated my Patreon page to include all of the resources that I've really ever made to be held in one place. Just head to my show notes. The VIP members do get a little extra, but you can also purchase like my brand new Ultimate ADHD Journal and Planner, which I've been using for the past year that has worked. Nothing is priced over $10, and everything is at least 50 to 100 pages that you can download and print. You can get it binded and sent to you, or you can just read it off your screen and use notebook paper. So if you want or need any type of that kind of extra support, just head to my show notes and click the Patreon link to join. I hope to see you in there.